All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Running with Wolves. Today, I want to give you guys some of my thoughts because I've been having some conversations with people who say that all you need to do in order to create consistent sales, be a successful business owner, is master your mindset or be consistent or have the best strategy. And I've talked about this a little bit, but I want to give you my thoughts because obviously I've been a business owner for about 4 years now. I've owned a business I've owned a business prior to that. And I've learned some things along the way about what it takes to actually be a successful business owner. So I want to talk about why just having strategy, just having consistency or the right production plan or the right mindset or energy is not actually going to get you to see consistent sales, to be a successful business owner. You truly need all four. So I want to kind of go through my own experiences and also on top of that, talk through kind of each of those four pillars and what you need to master with each of them. So a lot of you guys know my story. You know, when I was 18, I started a business with my dad. It was a rideshare company that was basically like Uber, but only for women. And we essentially had that for 2 years and we sold it. During those 2 years, I worked in the operations and the marketing department and kind of helped head that up. And so there was a lot of really long days. We marketed super consistently. We had all of the right systems and processes. We had great mindset and energy, a great production plan. But what we didn't have was the right strategy. So in my opinion, I think our marketing strategy was definitely a little bit lackluster with that company and definitely could have been better. But we thought we were doing everything right because we were being consistent. We had the right production plan. We had the right mindset and energy, and eventually ended up selling that company. And so to me, I think it could have been way more successful if we had had the right strategy in place. Flash forward to my own business, obviously, there have been phases of my business where I have done a really good job of each of these areas, but it hasn't quite created the holistic support that we had this year. So in the beginning of my business, I have never ever been a person that had an issue with consistency. Like, I am consistent to a fault, to the point where sometimes people are like, you can take a break, it's okay. And I'm like, no, if I'm not consistent, I'm a failure. But that's just something I'm working through in therapy. It's fine. But so that's always something that I've been really good at, is being consistent. I've always had the right production plan, and I think that my mindset and my energy, my sales energy, has always been really good. So I've always shown up with good energy. I've never had a problem just kind of turning it on in terms of almost that like performance aspect of things. But what I have struggled with is mindset and strategy. So the first 2 years of my business, I would say I had an okay strategy. But like I've shared in a lot of these episodes, I will say that sales definitely felt like it was kind of pulling teeth in the first couple of years of my business, to the point where, yes, we were consistently showing up within our content, but we weren't necessarily saying the right things to see a shit ton of sales. We were seeing some sales, but not a ton of them. And I think we could have created way more sales if we had had a slightly different strategy. And I think on top of that, as my business has grown, I've never been someone who had leaned into kind of the woo-woo aspect of being a business owner, where you're like, oh, you need to have the right mindset and the right routine and all of these different things. When I mastered my routines and when I mastered my mindset and my ability to not go on this like emotional entrepreneurial roller coaster every time something happened, my business scaled so much more effortlessly. And it's really funny because, like I said, I think this year has been the best year that we've ever had in business. And we've really had that compound effect where, like, we created way more results than I even ever thought we would with way less time. But I think this has also been the craziest year in business for me. We've dealt with so much, and I wish I could tell you guys like half of it because I have some tea for you. But unfortunately, I cannot. But with that being said, if I hadn't mastered my mindset behind being a business owner, behind consistently showing up, behind it being okay, the sales are coming, I think that we would be in a much different place than we are now. We've had team members quit, we've had clients quit on us, we've had, turnover, we've had periods of time where like maybe during these last 4 years, like our marketing wasn't creating the results that we were looking for. I've been in the negative. Like last year, I shared with you guys last summer, I was in the negative for 2 months to the point where I was like, I can't make payroll this time, And you get to a point as a business owner where you're like, you know what? I either have to know it's going to be okay, or no one else will, right? And I have to be the one that runs the ship, right? And so I think that as a business owner, if you don't have all 4 of those things, it can very easily cause everything to burn to the ground. So for those of you that are like, oh, I just need the right strategy, or, oh, I just need to have the right mindset, or I just need to be consistent, one without the other does not equal success. So really quick, I want to go through each of these kind of different pillars, if you will, and talk about the importance within each of them and how you can do them really well. Some of this is information that you guys already know, but I think it's really important as like a recap. So we'll start with strategy because I think that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. You can have a great mindset, you can have great energy, a great production plan, great consistency, but if you don't know the right things to say to get your audience to buy, it's always going to feel really difficult to create those sales. So the first thing that you want to focus on is our Wolf framework, like I've talked about before with you guys, that attract, warm, convert. In order to consistently see sales, you have to create predictable visibility. You have to consistently have new leads getting exposed to your brand and to your business every single day that you can then build trust with, that you can then sell to, right? But if you don't have new blood coming in every day, you're just going to sell to that same pool of leads over and over and over again, and it's going to be really stagnant. So you have to be able to create that consistent, predictable visibility, which we do a lot of the times on TikTok. For most people, I will say, their target audience is consuming content on TikTok. Unless you are working with people who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, I will say even my grandma sends me stuff from TikTok, honestly, you guys. So like she's still on there consuming content. People who are older are still very much consuming content on TikTok. However, that's, I would say, the majority of where you should be leveraging your predictable visibility, predictable virality, right? So you want to try to go viral, obviously in a way that is controllable. You know why you went viral, to a place where you can do it over and over and over again, and it becomes super repeatable. So then on top of that, you go into the warming phase, which is where we build that know, like, trust factor that we've talked about. You differentiate yourself from your competitors, you build authority and expertise, and you create raving fans for your brand, right? And that truly can happen on TikTok. It can happen on Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, pretty much any marketing platform. You can build brand recognition, awareness, trust, authority, expertise, etc., right? So something that I will say is that a lot of that comes from providing value. It comes from giving your opinions, talking about your unique frameworks, the UVP of your business or your brand, your unique value proposition, which is what really makes you different from your competitors. And on top of that, it comes from showcasing social proof, because social proof builds a shit ton of trust with your audience consistently. And then on top of that, we go into the converting phase, right? So the converting phase is really all going to be focused on, we've talked about this before, selling your product or your service as a solution to your target audience's problems or desires. So we've talked about this before in terms of selling as a solution and based on your buyer types. So let's say, for example, I had a skincare company and I was selling a retinol. I've used this example before. Most people will say, oh, this retinol has this percentage of retinol in it. It's this many liters of product or milliliters of product. On top of that, it's this price point. You get these ingredients. They're talking about the details of the product, right? No one cares. Literally no one cares about the details of your product unless you are a scientist, right? Most people, speaking for myself and for so many other people who are looking for a good retinol, are looking for what it does. So they're looking for typically the fastest retinol that's going to give them the results, something maybe that's going to help them not peel, different things like that. So if I said to you, hey, this retinol is actually going to help turn your cells over 3 to 4 times the speed that most retinols would. And on top of that, you're not going to have any texture or acne or wrinkles. And on top of that, it's super gentle on your skin. So you're not going to peel. You're not going to have really any gnarly side effects when you start to use this retinol. Which one are you going to buy? You're going to buy the one that typically gives you the solution that you're looking for rather than the details. Because if you get the solution, you don't necessarily care about the process that it takes to get there, right? Same thing on the service-based side of things. We'll use marketing, for example. I could line up 10 social media managers and be like, what all do you offer in your packages? And we would all say the exact same thing. You're going to get 3 posts on TikTok a day, 4 feed posts on Instagram, 1 story series on Instagram stories, 30 minutes of lead generation, maybe 60 minutes of DM closing, things like that, right? The services, the deliverables are all the same. So if that's all you're talking about, no one's going to even bat an eyelash. But for us, if we know that, let's say ROI is really important to our target audience, and we say, we are going to enable you to put out content that not only 2 to 3x's your results, but does it with half or a third of the amount of time that you're going to be putting in, the amount of effort or energy that you're going to be putting into that content. So we're going to create a ton more revenue for you with way less time that you have to commit to that. And on top of that, we're going to engage your audience so much that they literally have so much FOMO for your brand. They cannot live without it, to the point where they're literally shoving their wallet in your face saying, take my money. I have to buy your product or your service. Which one are you going to invest in? The 3 feed posts a week, or the 3 TikToks a day, or the person who positions their marketing like that? That one is typically the one that you're going to invest in, because again, it's the solution that you're looking for. So with that strategy, make sure you're always following the Wolf framework. But again, you could have the best strategy, and if you have a shitty mindset, or if you can't implement the strategy consistently or right with the right production plan, you're still not going to see success or sales quickly. So again, going into consistency, there are things that you should be doing consistently every single day in order to create sales. That is 3 TikToks per day. We've talked about this before. That is truly the magic number that we have seen create the most growth the quickest and the most sales the quickest. So in addition to that, you'll want to do 2 to 3 feed posts on Instagram per week. So something that I will say is that Instagram feed posts have very much become almost like a little miniature landing page at this point. So if you think about that buyer's journey we've talked about before, they're coming from TikTok, they're binging your content there, and they're going over to Instagram. But remember, people are really looking for that authentic side of brands and businesses. And so, yeah, they're going to look at your feed posts, but they're mostly going to be stalking your stories and your highlights. So it's still important to have that, because it moves the needle more, so that when people are binging your content, they're consuming the stuff you want them to consume. But really what they're going to be paying attention to is your stories. So because of that, you should be selling your product or your service on your stories every single day. And you should be doing that consistently. And all of this should really only take you 30 to 60 minutes per day if you understand the buttons to push for your audience to get them to buy. That is what is the key here, you guys. The reason why it takes so many of you 2, 3, 4 hours per day to create content is because you don't know what to talk about. So you're sitting there like, well, I have no idea what to talk about. You're scrolling Instagram like, I wonder if there's something that I can see on here that sparks inspiration for me. And then you have to create content. You have to write the caption. You have to film the video or create the graphic or take the photo. You have to post it. You have to do all these different things. But if you know, hey, I can talk about these 5 things, I can immediately see sales. Content creation becomes so much easier. So then, like I said, you have to be consistent, but sometimes consistency is not only impacted by not knowing what to talk about, it's also impacted by the fact that you're using the wrong production approach. So we have 2 production approaches that we talk about, and the things that you want to think about for choosing one is take into account your schedule, take into account how much time or money you have to throw at your marketing and at your sales. And you also want to take into account your overall goals, right? So for me, for example, there was a phase in my business where I used our micro production approach, meaning I created a lot of little pieces of content. And now we've moved into this phase where we're kind of more using the macro production approach. And our macro production approach is we create long form pieces of content, i.e. podcast episodes, that typically get chopped up by our team and strategically repurposed across all platforms. The reason that works for me now is because I've already built brand recognition, awareness. Our audience is super hot and warm. We know exactly what to talk about in order to get them to buy from us. And then on top of that, I actually have a team of people who can chop that up and strategically repurpose all of that content across all platforms. If it was just me, that would be another thing that I needed to add to my list, instead of me being able to say, you know what, I'm just going to go film those 3 TikToks right now, put them out, and I'm good to go. So when it comes to your production approach, think through how much time do you have in order to create this content? What's your budget if you need to hire on a team? What does your schedule look like? Do I need to batch create this content? Do I need to film it on a daily basis? Basically, think of yourself as a business owner as an excuse eliminator. So I have to get this much content out every single day, and think through and reverse engineer, how am I going to go about doing that with my schedule being what it is, being a one-man band or having a team or any of those things. So you want to take all of those things into consideration when it comes to your production plan. And like I said, think of yourself really as an excuse eliminator as a business owner. If you know you need to get a certain amount of content done and out every single day, reverse engineer and think through, how can I really make this happen so that I do consistently get my content and my marketing out to consistently see sales. And then last but not least, please prioritize your energy and your mindset, you guys. There are two different ways that you can show up and sell your product or your service. If you're showing up and you're like, hey guys, so I'm going to talk to you about marketing. I'm really excited. I love our social media management package. People will be like, be so fucking for real right now. I have no desire to buy from you. But if you showed up and you were like, hey guys, so I'm super excited to talk about our marketing and our sales program or our marketing and our sales package. It's going to do XYZ for you. I truly love this package. I love everything that it does for our clients. Here's results that it's created, blah, blah, blah. I'm sitting there. I'm excited. I'm energetic to talk to you guys. I'm positive that no like trust factor is there. You're a lot more likely to probably buy from that person than you are Eeyore. Freaking, from Winnie the Pooh, who's just like, hi guys, I'm not excited to talk to you. Like, no one wants to buy from that person. People buy from people, and they want to buy from people who are excited about what they're selling, right? So I think that's going to be really important when you're showing up to sell, to step into the right energy and the right mindset there. But on top of that, behind the scenes, I think the biggest thing that I will say is, do not allow yourself to go on this, again, like entrepreneurial roller coaster. If you are going through like a week's period of time where, you're not seeing really good views on your content, don't freak out. If you know the strategy is working, sometimes things happen. Like, for example, actually a month ago, we went through a period of time that was really wonky because one of our TikTok videos actually got categorized in like a weird way. It went to like Spanish marketing strategies basically. And so it wasn't reaching our target audience. And so our views were actually a lot lower, and it impacted our applications. And 2 years ago, I would have been like, everyone stop. What are we doing? My business is going to burn to the ground, blah, blah, blah. And instead I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. Like, this is not a normal result that we've been seeing. What can we do to kind of shift it? And instead of freaking out, we took ownership and said, oh, you know what? This video that we created, it got categorized wrong. This is why it's happening. Here's how we can make these shifts and changes. And then 2 weeks later, our views were right back up to where they normally were. And we're good to go. So don't allow yourself to go on this like roller coaster, basically, where you're like, holy shit, everything's burning to the ground. Oh my gosh, everything's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. You just go to the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, because when you're leading yourself, and also when you're at a point where you're leading a large team, kind of like I am now, you have to be the one who is neutral and emotionally intelligent and calm, in order for them to also feel that way. And in order for you to also feel that way, you almost like have to lead yourself, right? So you have to have the right mindset, or else you're always going to really struggle to get that traction going, because you're constantly going to be exhausting yourself emotionally, going from the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So again, you can't be successful without having all four of those things. You could have the strongest mindset but no strategy, and you're not going to see sales. Or you could have great consistency but shitty mindset and no strategy and not see sales, right? So you really have to master all four of those things in order to be a successful business owner and scale sustainably. So I'd be curious to know from you guys, what do you feel like is the area where you struggle the most? I'd love to hear from you guys, because then obviously we can talk about it more in our podcast episodes. So if you're watching this on TikTok or Instagram, drop it in the comments below. And if you're listening to just our podcast, make sure you head over to one of our platforms and send us a comment so that we can chat more. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye, guys.